Okay, welcome to the Public Works and Service Committee meeting. If there are no additions or changes to the agenda, could I have a motion for approval? Motion to approve. Moved by Mayor Little, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? And we have a presentation from the fire chief. There's been a lot of action as far as all the fires we have going on, and our Metchosin group has been front and center several times this year. So,
sorry, I didn't have time to make copies. I tried, but my printer ran out of toner. So you'll have to just look along there, and we'll print that out for you at another point in time. All right. Hopefully I can figure out how to use this. So I'm just going to give you a very brief summary of what we've done this year for deployments, and then just leave time for afterwards for questions. So, all right, this year we started in May at Fort St. John. They went from there to Fort Nelson, Burns Lake, Tumbler Ridge, Cranbrook, Sparwood, and Adams Creek. And we haven't been out the entire time, but we've been up and got called to a different fire, and that's kind of how it works. So the province calls us up when they need that support, and we get called in, we go for however long we stay for that particular deployment, and then return back. So we've been to a fair number of cities this year. So for this year, we've done 114 days out. That's 71 with an engine, 23 as a mechanic, 4 as a TFL, 6 as an SPC, and 10 as a tender. And I will clarify what all those things are. We had 36 firefighters that were out this year. The payroll for those firefighters came to over $200,000, and that's in our firefighter pockets. Okay, and that's gross. They still have to be taxed and all that. But by doing these deployments, we're also giving that perk to our firefighters. And the net to the district should be over $300,000. So, we wonder how it all works. As an example, a Type 3 engine gets called upon by BC Wildfire. So a fire happens and they say, hey, we need a Type 3 engine. And they say, well, who's on the list for Type 3 engines? Oh, look, Metchosin has a great one. Let's call that one up. They give us some paperwork, we sign it, and now we belong, if you will. Not belong, that's not the right word. We are contracted by BC Wildfire to deploy. For the second that we leave our hall until we return, we get paid $506 per hour to run that truck. So, and that's guaranteed a minimum 12 hours a day. So when we're driving all the way up to Fort St. John, we're getting paid for that entire travel time. All right, so that's called an all-found rate. So out of that rate comes the fuel, our regular maintenance items like filters, that kind of thing, and the firefighter payroll. So that when you take all that out of it, it equates to roughly $4,000 a day net to the district for the engine that's up there. Okay, and that's for an engine. Every different type of apparatus has a different dollar value per hour, and I'll clarify that in another slide. The firefighters get deployed for up to 14 days, so they can take a 2-week holiday from their work, and they get paid for 14 days, including the travel. So they're maximum 14 days, and then they have to put a new crew out. So we're not burning our firefighters out by keeping them up there, extended hours. The engine, however, or the apparatus can stay up for as long as it's either requested or unless we need it back. And this year was a great example of that. We had, on one of the fires that I was in, we had West Kelowna was there. And then, of course, they had fires break out in their own town. They hightailed it out of there. So, obviously there's that flexibility. If there's something that happens locally or in your own jurisdiction, they get out of there and get back as soon as possible. If you have any questions along the way, feel free to chime in.
Yeah. I do, just on that actually.
Yep.
So Kelowna is probably close to a lot of these places. We have a ferry, so you're not going to get here really fast. So can you assure us that we are taken care of while you're away, that we have a full complement with the apparatus that we have should there be a wildland fire here?
Yeah, so that's actually a great question. We have several engines. All of them have different, obviously, primary roles, but we can still fulfill the needs of whatever engine happens to be around. Our tender, when that goes out, we actually borrow one from eSoup because they have 2. And all of our mutual aid partners are on board with us having that deployed as well. We also share the firefighter experience with other firefighters from other municipalities. So it gives them that experience because they, are unable to deploy. So it's a collaborative effort for sure. And yes, we have not had any issues at this point in time, and we have full capacity while that one engine is away. The deployment types, I was quoting all those different acronyms and letters. This is kind of what that looks like in a nutshell. An engine can have anywhere from 2 to 4 people and can be anywhere from $225 an hour to $638. So that depends on the type of engine. So obviously if there's only 2 people on the engine, like what they call a Type 7, a smaller little engine, that's only going to be $225 an hour. Okay, the larger engine, more people, more dollars per hour. Same with the tender. A structure protection crew. Now the district doesn't make a ton of money on this one as far as net to the district because it doesn't really take any of our apparatus. It takes pickup trucks. Now this year we were able to roll a structure protection crew for not a long time, I think it was 6 days or something like that, and we were able to take our, we call it Redneck 1, but it's our Resource 1, our flat deck that we have there, and then a private vehicle, a local private vehicle, and then 5 firefighters up, and that still gets us that $49.16 a day. That's a regular 12-hour day, and then funding goes back to the people who own the vehicles, and then the district does get some out of it. It's just not the amount that it does for an engine. Obviously, for income when you're talking about money net to the district, an engine is by far the best way to go. We do have a mechanic, which is a great resource for us. So while the district doesn't make any money on this, there's nothing that comes net to the district. It's a huge resource because while our engine's up there, our mechanic's up there. He's making that kind of money, and that's all his equipment, his truck. It really has nothing to do with us per se. We just process the billing and we take a small administrative fee for that, so the district's not losing any funding by that. But it gives us a great reputation because we have a really good mechanic that goes up there. And it also protects our apparatus while we're up there. Now, not every time do we deploy an engine or an apparatus do we get our mechanic up there, but this year we've been very fortunate and we've had him up there quite often with us. We're not like some other larger urban-centered fire departments who won't roll their truck unless they roll their mechanic. We have a task force leader or a div super. This is a leadership position. This is a one person that they're calling up because they need that management piece. So we did have our DC that was asked to go up, I think, 2 times, and he gets paid then also a contract rate of $69 an hour. Again, this is a straight income to him. There's a small administrative fee that goes off to the municipality as well. And while the district doesn't make a lot of money on these small contract people that go up there, it's still the reputation. And Metchosin's got a fantastic reputation in deployments. Everybody knows Metchosin. So it's been great working up there. And what the firefighters get back by working up there is there's just nothing you can teach. It's really fabulous. And then the firefighters are contracted. They get paid $49 an hour out of that rate. So, yeah.
Chief, sorry, just jumping to the top again. The tender, that otherwise known as the water tanker?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
How much water does it hold?
Ours holds 1,500 gallons.
15. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
So all of these rates are set out in an interagency agreement, which is agreed upon by BC Wildfire, that should be BCWS, not C, my apologies, EMCR, and the Fire Chiefs Association of BC. So they all agree on these rates, and that's published. And then at the beginning of the year, the BC Wildfire puts out this notice saying anyone who wants to deploy, give us your list of what you're willing to deploy, and then we submit that list in, and some people get called and some people don't. That's kind of how that works. So deployment costs, the BC Wildfire pays for all lodging, they pay for all the ferry, they pay for all meals. Sometimes it's covered initially, like if we stay in a camp. Other times it might be that they have to reimburse us back. So all those costs are covered. What they don't cover would be end of year, or when we get back, like our engine got back, we're going to be doing a good detail on it, and that maintenance, making sure that everything is tickety-boo and good to go. Any damage that happens to be done, for example, we had a rock chip on one, they cover that. So any damage to any apparatus or actual hoses or anything like that, they reimburse us for it. There is fuel that has to come out of that all-found rate. This year, in all those deployments, it is going to be about $20,000. But with that, we're still netting close to $300,000. Personal gear, we had this year, very unusual year. We don't normally deploy that much, just for the record. But this year we had a fire that blew out our camp, so our camp had to actually be evacuated while we were out fighting fires. So they actually had to put together a lot of our gear and try and get it out of there before the fire burned over. And there were people, not in our crew, but there were other departments that lost tents and that sort of thing. So BC Wildfire at the time tried to give as many tents as they could in that situation, but there are sometimes you're not going to get exactly what you might have lost there. And that's where insurance and such would come into that. But generally speaking, guys might rip a pair of pants or something like that, then we would have to replace that kind of gear. So personal PPE stuff, there is that embedded in there. But again, all damage and repairs to any apparatus or equipment is replaced. Any questions on that?
I have one question. So you say we can put our name on a list and we get called or we don't call. Some departments in the GVRD did not do that. Langford, for obvious reasons, they don't have staffing complement. Are you obligated, even if they get called you, are you obligated to go? Is there a contract?
At no time are you obligated to go. And you can be there for less than 14 days. The contract, the IAA, the Interagency Agreement, states a minimum of 8 days. So if you say, you know what, there's something that's going sideways here, we're not comfortable, we want to have you back, then you come back. Yeah. And if you sign that letter saying that, yes, we would like to, have this stuff on the list, and you guys decide that no, we're not going to do any deployments this year, then fine, we just pull a name for the list. If it's the chief is gone or the chief is sick and the deputy chief is, and we don't have the crews for whatever reason, it's a holiday weekend, we don't have the crews to send out, then we say, no, sorry, we'll have to pass. In fact, we did pass a couple of times this year on deployments. They were very desperate this year. And I also would like to note that one of the biggest concerns for deployments is not the apparatus being out, because quite frankly, there are a lot of apparatus in the South Island, right, that we have access to if needed. I mean, Lincoln was 9 years ago, I think, this weekend, right? We had all kinds of apparatus for that. It's the personnel that become the problem that people run short on, that departments run short on, is having the personnel to protect the community while those 3 or 4 hour many are out there deployed. And we're very fortunate that we don't have that problem here. I'll just touch really briefly on this because it's super boring unless you're kind of into the whole thing. Incident command system. This is the whole BC wildfire management is huge. And I just can't, this doesn't do it justice, but I wanted to give you kind of a concept. If you look at the one that says incident command there, and you go down, you've got, at the very top, you've got Mark Healy. This is actually from a IAP, an incident action plan that came from the fires. And you scroll down that line that goes down the center, and you've got the 4 finance, logistics, what's the other one? Logistics, finance, planning, and then over on the far side, you've got operations. So that square at the far right-hand corner there actually leads to the operations, which is the other big square here, right? So now you've got that whole line of personnel that work under it, and this is all just to manage one fire. Now, sometimes it can be a complex. And then we are under structure defense. I don't know if you can see it. I don't know why there's yellow ones there, but yeah, structure protection. It's like the second box over. So under that then is our command structure. I don't know why the lines aren't showing up. There's boxes around all these that are supposed to be, but so we had in this is the Adams complex. This was our crew, and we had 97 people just under our crew. And that's not to mention the 200 Argentinians they had, and the 200 Mexicans they had, and I mean they had firefighters from all over the world. It was really amazing. Again, experiences you'll never get here in Metchosin. So yeah, just to kind of give you an idea on that.
We hope. Sorry, we hope.
So just to, we don't sit around and, it's not luxury that we're sitting in. This was a crewing rink. This was actually Burns Lake, and that's the incident command They were sitting at those little tables there, and then back in the windows, had some offices back there. That chair is what I sat on for 2 weeks. Not comfortable, let me tell you. I upgraded finally though, so that got a little bit better. But that was my little station right there. So what I do is I work the staging manager. So all of those 97 people, I take care of those, make sure they're fed and everything's where they need to be and that sort of thing. So that's I do from my little area there. So yeah, I was just going to show you a little bits of camp life here. It's not luxurious. Sometimes it's intense. That's a tent city there. You see up on the upper left-hand side. Next to that is an ATCO camp. It's an LPG or a mine. I'm not sure which that one is. But we stay sometimes when it gets really cold, like up north. They'll give us the camps to stay in, which are amazing. Each one of those has its own little shower and bathroom, and you go home at night and it's a little bed, as opposed to the trailer or the tent city that you have to stay in with bugs and such. So most of us like staying in those, but that only happens once in a blue moon when you're way up north and it's cold outside. So yeah, the other picture up at the top right is just of some cots and whatnot, that a collection. That's what they were trying to do to get the fire was starting to come through, so they were trying to evacuate over there. Down below is what an actual fire camp looks like. Again, it's just modular tents and the ATCO trailers, and that's once a fire gets big enough, and so you have little fires that start, and then you hear the terminology of the complex. Have you heard that? It's the Adams Lake complex fire. That's when more than one fire or more than two fires have joined together. And fire likes to grow together. So you have 3 or 4 fires that are and then all of a sudden they merge into one massive fire. So what we did there, yeah, that's our guy there in the gray. We are kind of stand out. All of our crews are in gray. I think we're one of the only departments that have the gray uniforms. We did you can't see that, unfortunately that picture's cut off, but the little guy there, they're doing a little bit of show and tell. The little kid's just jumping up and down, he's so excited. So we even do public education while we're up there. We do fill a lot of bladders out there so we all work together, so the structural protection crews that put up sprinklers and that kind of thing, the tenders will fill that, and so it's just kind of a well-oiled machine up there. This year, our crew was super lucky. 3 different crews got helicopter rides, which doesn't happen very often, let me tell you. Yeah, those are just some pictures of different groups, and I think that big picture there was the Argentinians that for their last day that they were leaving. These guys are, man, the international teams that come over, they are like on point. They're like dressed in uniforms. They're just like you see them on TV where they have their songs and dances that they do, and everywhere they're walking in a line, and they put all the rest of us to shame. This is my last deployment in Kamloops. Our crew, our fire camp got evacuated, so we ended up in this parking lot. And again, this is my office. You'll see my trusty chair there. There we are again, just trying to see if there's anything stellar there. That's our engine. This is really gross, but sad, but that upper left-hand picture, when I'm sitting in a parking lot for several hours while the crew's all out working, I don't always get to go out in the fire. So I'm sitting doing paperwork out in this parking lot. I make friends with bugs and such. So I have a printer that I had sitting there, and my little bug friend would like to crawl inside of it sometimes. And all of a sudden my printer stopped, and I killed my bug. Got ground up in the printer. That's how bored I was that I had to take a photo of it. And there's our engine. Yeah, welcome to my life. Alrighty. There's our guys up in the helicopter. Look how happy they are. The picture of all these goodies here, it's kind of funny in Kamloops, because we got evacuated from camp, we didn't have the food camp there. So part of the logistics teams went out to Costco and bought food and everything for everybody. When you have visitors that come in from other countries, they eat differently than we do. They eat a lot more than what they expected. So this order alone was $8,000, and that lasted 1 day. Yeah, they ate it because they were just it's a kind of an open line for people to come in and just grab what they wanted to for lunch. And on top of this were sandwiches and all kinds of stuff like that. It was crazy, the amount of food. That's just a local thank you. You can see Metchosin on there, but it kind of gives you a picture of the other departments who are there. A lot of islands. You've got Sydney, North Oyster on that one, Saanich, Big White, Armstrong, obviously not Island, but you've got departments from just all over. It's a really great connection. Now I don't know if these are videos. Do you know will they work from here? I'm going to try and turn these on. Now, there's one video that I have a bad word in it, so they're firefighters, so I can't really do anything about it. I don't know if this one's actually a very long one. It's very brief. I don't even know if this one's. Yeah, no. Okay, let's go to the next one. Oh, that one went automatically. Okay. So this one might. Okay. My apologies in advance. That's a TFL coming toward them.
Yeah, go ahead, bye guys. Good to see you.
TFL, don't let anyone change that was blocking. Yeah, really on.
Yeah, we're not going to let anyone go from this direction. I'll try and get a hold of someone on the other end to close it, just to go to traffic.
So this particular fire, when it happened, I don't know if you had heard the news of the Adams Creek fire and the Lee Creek, Scotch Creek. So what had happened is the fire actually went down an opposite way than what was actually protected. So that's where our fire camp was. And that was one day I actually got to get out in the field. So we were all out in the field and in 3 separate teams. And of course there's wooden bridges that kind of protect, that connect all those. And one crew actually got stuck there overnight because the bridge was compromised. But the fire came through, and this is when it was just starting to come through. We're trying to get everybody back together again. But you're trying to be out there, there's a balance between protecting homes and how long can I stay there and protect the home and get the sprinklers going and do that versus get out of there. Mm-hmm. And as you can see, like they drove through that, but it was hot, and they're inside of a truck. So, and then trees start falling, and it got a little sketchy when we actually evacuated. There's a video in here of our evacuation zone here, I think. Nope, the next one. This one. Actually, is it going on its own? It does. So this isn't terribly exciting. Is it going? Yeah. There, okay. But it's pretty ominous when you're, right now, all of the fire trucks are all lined up in this field, waiting for this fire to literally come through those trees. Honestly, I think we all had popcorn out going, it's going to come through the trees, right? We were kind of excited to see that. But it's pretty ominous to watch that cloud and that movement and the noise that's coming on with it. And you know that there's a lot of heat in there. And just moments before that, it was just up the hill. So we waited for that to pass, and then we drove out. The other team came in from Scotch Creek and came in, and we drove out toward the highway from the Lee Creek there. And it was probably a 20-minute drive, and the entire way it was just obliterated, including our camp. That, there was no trees, there was nothing. The gas station that was there was on fire and exploding as we're trying to get out of there. And that's how quickly the fire, I was like, within 4 hours, the entire landscape was gone. And it's just amazing how quickly that fire came through. This is our camp that you can just hear the firefighters, those are the forestry guys, like, what do we do now? The fire came right up to the edge of the camp, and there were embers that were coming, and we lost some of the trailers and such around there. So it's the first time they ever had to evacuate a fire camp. Try and move 1,000 people that quickly. So anyway, that's just kind of a quick and dirty of our experiences this summer. If you have any questions?
Sorry.
I do have a question because I keep getting asked from residents that we send off tender number 5, which is our good guy, right?
Negative.
Okay.
Tender 5 is our tender.
Okay, so it's which one went?
Engine
I
9,
call
well,
it
we've had several that have gone, but we sent engine 9,
Okay.
was probably the best one.
Right, okay. So the concern is we're sending this big truck that we just purchased, $750,000 plus dollars. And the worst wildfire season in all of BC history, stage 5 drought, all these sorts of things. And last winter, probably around November, we had a house fire up the Bond area, which there's no hydrants up there, significant damage. And tenders are for relaying water, as she explains to me before, because then it carries a lot of water. People are asking, why are we sending this apparatus up there? Yes, I know you've said we've got some here, we've got a complement of people, but we live in a heavily forested community and we really need some assurance, they say. That's my question to you. They're not feeling it, especially when we've got other communities who are holding back.
Right, but as previously noted, they're not holding back because of apparatus, they're holding back because of personnel, to be fair.
Sure.
It's a great question. That we have made back half of what it cost to purchase the truck. That's one reason why we go, because it does make good money. We can certainly not deploy it if that is the direction of council. I think, it's a risk-benefit analysis, absolutely. And that's kind of my decision and that of my officers, that we have made that risk-benefit analysis and ensured that we have other protection in place for that. If that's not the direction or the confidence of Mayor and Council, then we will certainly have that review.
Well, so the second part of that question which you just brought up is, are we doing this to make money?
We're doing it for several reasons. Income is one of those, for sure. I mean, to have an extra $200,000 or $300,000 in the budget is certainly helpful. And we've been doing this for several years, so it's not a new thing for us, for sure. This year is a bit bigger than most, but we've been doing this for years. So it's already kind of a precedent's been set for us to do this. But we don't just get money out of it. The guys get experiences that we would never be able to give them in any kind of training course here, ever. We build resiliency for our own community, because now those people who have lived through those type of fires, when they get something here, they're going, yeah, we know how to deal with that. We know how to set up those sprinklers, or we know what that fire is going to do. We understand better terrain and how massive fires, how people react in evacuation, how to deal with people who go, we're not getting out of here. These guys are dealing with people who are threatening them with guns. Like, they're learning how to deal with difficult situations, and that builds resiliency that I can't give them in a class.
I do understand that.
Yeah.
I think the scare has been the worst in history, and where we live is tinder dry. We've been really lucky, actually, not even have as much as a grass fire.
But here's the thing, we have had several small brush fires. Tuckwell Harbor has had BC wildfire out there a couple of times. We have had some locally here. I think a couple of people can talk to one about that's just been on down on Annie Jackson, and we've had a few other little minor ones. So we have had brush fires here because the community is very diligent to be on things, and we get to them very quickly, and we have the resources and the crews to be able to mitigate those. So we have had them. It just hasn't been something that we promoted that we have. It's not. My intent is not to scare people.
No, and the reason I'm asking the questions is for reassurance of the public.
Absolutely.
It's not so much that we haven't had fires. It's been a long time since we had a forest fire. The two that I am aware of, one was Petter Bay, but the most recent was Blinkhorn. And somebody just mentioned to me yesterday, what's with that mountain up there, those dead trees? I said, well, that's a scar. Mm-hmm. And it was a forest fire. It got out of control. And so we don't want to see that again.
Absolutely.
It's just a matter of time before something will happen. Many of us live on corridors where there's a lot of people traversing, seeing more and more cigarette butts, even on this property here. So it's just, I don't know if the general public are feeling that confidence. when they see their investment going out to the ferries.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I haven't had one person say anything to me or write any letters or anything like that. So I would encourage people to come in, see what equipment we do have and understand how it all works. Because I don't want people to be frustrated because we're deploying.
I don't think they're frustrated. I think, when their taxes are going up, they're asking questions. So
yeah, if it's a
And I
tax dollar
understand.
thing, we're trying to bring back some of that tax dollar too. So the other piece on deploying the engine this year was we also were able to get any bugs worked out of it at BC Wildfires done. Yeah, we had a couple issues with gas and the gas cap and that sort of thing, minor issues that BC Wildfire actually compensated us for. So that it's getting a good run there.
Does anyone else have any questions for the chief?
Thanks, Chief. To Councillor Donaldson's point, I think what's underway right now, I'm forgetting the exact name, it's the heat assessments?
Yes. Yeah, extreme heat assessment.
Extreme heat assessment. And I think from that, we're going to be able to get a sense of what the risk, I think the wildfire risk is, or?
Respectfully, that's really just how the community deals with extreme heat.
I see.
Yeah, our CWRP,
Okay.
which is our Community Wildfire Risk Wildfire Risk Protection Plan, I think is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
That defines our risk.
Okay. Okay. At some point, it would be interesting to hear from you. I'm betting you have theory and outlook and insights into this about how at risk we are of having a fires like what we see in the interior here in Metchosin. And again, hard to say what we can assume, but it seems like we're drying out increasingly over the summer. So,
Yes. And we are, and I would love to bring actually somebody from BC Wildfire in, because I can tell you till I'm blue in the face, but to have an expert come in would be really probably better for you.
Great.
But in a snapshot, we will not see this kind of fire here locally, because it's a different type of terrain, it's a different type of greenery, different trees, all that kind of thing. So is that a risk? Maybe, potentially, worst case scenario. But those fires have been going for days and days and days. That doesn't happen here because we're too small. And people are on that very quickly. Like even the fires up at Tugwell in Otter Point, like they were out. There's nothing, the fire departments weren't even called to that. There's nothing anybody could do. The fire crews were in there and the BC wildfire crews were in there. So I think it's a very valid, and I'm not trying to belittle concerns at all. And I just would like to bring somebody in who can actually speak to that for you, to give you that confidence.
Anyone? Well, I really appreciate the efforts that all of you put into going up there. I think that, I think the wildfires are a problem for all of us. I think it's important to help out when we can with all those people in such horrible circumstances. And I have confidence in your organization that you have enough equipment and people here to protect us. And I think that in the same situation, if those fires did in fact happen here, that we would have fire trucks and people coming from other areas, such as the interior, to help us out as well. I think it's a big community.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. That was great.
Thank you. Sorry, it took long.
Okay, moving on to public participation. Do we have anyone?
Sir Anthony, Metchosin Road. I just watching that. I just want to say, oh my goodness, thank you. I grew up in Kamloops and Prince George, and I've been evacuated from my home twice. And I'm really grateful to know that we're helping my family who still live out there, and it means a lot to me. And I think, just that I got a little upset actually hearing them, especially as I know you're just relaying them. But I think it's so we're Metchosin, but we live in BC and we live in a greater community, and I think it's so important that we can help those people. And if we care about the environment and we care about food security and we care about other human beings, it's really, really important that we can help. And I'm really glad that we can. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, move on to the adoption of the minutes of the meeting of July 17th.
So,
Moved by Councillor Schicken, seconded by Mayor Little. All in favor? And then receipt of the Healthy Community Advisory Select Committee meetings of July 25th and August 22nd. Moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Gray. All in favor? Now a councillor's update. I won't really go into this in depth since we've got a lot going on tonight. I hope you'll have a chance to have a look and see what's been going on. We've got Public Works, MACA, and things going on there, as well as the Senior Center, and the wish more to be coming later on the Community Fire Smart and Resiliency Grant. The background on that will be coming up in a bit when it all gets firmed up. I also wanted to acknowledge again all the work of the Metchosin Day Committee and Public Works crew and the fire department and all the gazillion volunteers out there that really made it a very successful day. I know my daughter said it was just like the old time Metchosin Day, and it really was. And also included in the report is the 2022 CRD Arts Commission Impact Report. So, if you have a chance to look at that and kind of see what the Arts Commission does, and they do have a lot of money they give out in grants. So, have a chance to have a look at that would be great. Otherwise, we have that as correspondence. I think that's it. So, no other business. So. Just have a motion to adjourn, moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor?